What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I am a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank you so very much for being here. Thank you so much for going to Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, Apple Music, wherever you like to get your music at, and listening to my music there. There's a new song out called Thank You. I'm very proud of it. I think that it's really good to support a gratitude practice and positivity in your life generally. It's also just fucking fun to listen to. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for hitting me up on Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and helping to make my whole thing possible. Thank you so much for having done that in the past. Thank you for doing it again now. Even like $2 really does help me a lot. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for getting a reading. You can get a Zoom reading where we talk together for an hour. You can get a 10-minute reading, which will be like this, where I just sort of like talk about whatever's going on for you this week or beyond, and all of the rest of the things, whatever your question is about. I'm happy to do that for 10 minutes in this same kind of format. You can find that at zambonifunk.com/store. Thank you so much for rocking with me. There's merch there as well. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So first things first here, a very merry Venus station to you. Venus is no longer retrograde. Fucking finally. Have you been out in the morning time, in like, especially in the pre-dawn period? That's where when you can see Venus shining super brightly right now. It's really amazing. It's way more inconvenient than it was to see Venus on the horizon. Before the Venus retrograde, it was like a little bit after sunset. It's really easy time to see Venus. Now it's before sunrise. A little more difficult, but no less brilliant. This is Venus in the moment, where this is the morning star Venus, right? So it's like much more sort of aggressive and ready to handle things, move things around, check stuff out, see what we can do about whatever the Venus retrograde stuff had been about, right? So that's full of that's a time for like reevaluation and refocusing and reinterpretation and all this sort of stuff, right? So you think you've got some stuff figured out, some new things, new thoughts to think or something like this. Now here's the other thing about that though, right? We're not quite done, because Mercury is still retrograde there in Virgo. And in fact, this week we're going to get the Mercury cazimi. That is to say that Mercury is going to move into the heart of the sun, going to conjoin the sun there in Virgo. So this is, I typically think about Mercury cazimi as being like a moment of clarity in a season of confusion, right? Mercury retrograde is full of confusion or miscommunication, misunderstandings, wires getting crossed, all this kind of stuff tends to happen with Mercury retrograde, right? And then in the cazimi moment, in that heart of the sun moment, there's a kind of clarity, a kind of purity of message, of understanding or something like this. This time, I don't know that clarity is the way that I want to go with it. It is opposite to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. It is, it is very fortunately under a trine from Jupiter in Taurus, and Jupiter in Taurus is now ruled by Venus, who is moving forward and no longer retrograde. So this does look like a good idea of some sort. This does look like maybe some kind of like something solution oriented or toward solution or something like this. Like it looks like there's it feels hopeful and like they're like full of possibility or something like this. But, I am maybe cautiously optimistic is a good way to put it. It feels like there's still a lot of disorientation that is sort of inherent to the whole situation in Virgo right now. So it looks like there's this nice situation that's coming from Jupiter, and also that Jupiter in Taurus is making a square to Venus in Leo as well, right? So that looks again like Venus can benefit from that. So Venus, Mercury, and the Sun are all benefiting from Jupiter's Taurus position. So that means that there is something here in Taurus, like the sort of practical or tangible space, the feelings. There's a lot of like sensuality to Taurus, right? Like there's something about like the way that things smell or feet on the earth or something like this that can benefit the Venus thing, right? The Venus thing that has been in the throes of all kinds of like troublesome and reevaluation, and like not the Venus thing hasn't been working, right? And so it looks like that thing benefits from some kind of groundedness, or the Taurus thing, like eating something delicious or something like this, listening to music or something like this, right? Looks like also the Mercury thing can benefit from that. So this sort of makes me think about, especially Taurus being the fixed earth sign, it makes me think that maybe there is some kind of slowing down, moving more slowly in some kind of way that could be beneficial, especially if we're thinking about Mercury retrograde as like miscommunication, misunderstandings, and this kind of thing, also associated with delays and this sort of stuff, right? Having to do it over another time, redo, all the rewords tend to show up under Mercury retrograde, right? So like, you know, a reissue or a refocus or reinvention or any of that sort of stuff, you got to do it again, right? So Mercury retrograde, which is associated with all of this kind of like doing it over and being confused and all that, that looks very much like it benefits from Jupiter and Taurus, from sitting quietly and moving more slowly than you think you maybe should. Sometimes a Mercury retrograde can feel like a time crunch, like, oh, I've got to get it out on time, it's got to happen right now, and it's not happening. And so that can cause snafu of some sort, that can cause things to, like, if you can avoid putting that kind of pressure on yourself or onto others or on the project you're working on or something like that, right? Like, it's super annoying when things don't happen on the timeline that you thought they were going to, especially if you had some kind of agreement with someone that they were gonna happen, it was gonna happen in this kind of time frame or something like this, and then it didn't happen that way, and then that can lead to disagreements or conflict or something like this, right? And so that Mercury retrograde is like prime time for that sort of stuff. So if you can look at it and be like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't need to be a rush. Maybe the hurry isn't as dire as I thought it was. Maybe I can take a moment to smell the roses, you know, thinking about Taurus things, take a moment to exist and feel what it's like to feel into body sensations and just be there for a little while, and like remember that it's kind of nice to be in a body sometimes, and taking that kind of slowly. And you know, also if we're looking at Virgo stuff, right, and the Virgo stuff, so the sun is in Virgo there with Mercury, right, and so the sun is ruling Venus in Leo as well, right, so they're, even though they can't see each other, they're still linked up in a very important way. If we take that situation and we think about Virgo as being meticulous with the details and this kind of thing, right, and then Mercury retrograde is sort of like redoing everything or looking over everything another time to make sure that the details are all on point, there might be something that is kind of delicious about that process. Like, it can be fun. If I wonder if there's a place that you can get to that instead of being like, oh, I have to do this another time, like, oh man, I don't want to. What if you looked at it from the perspective of like, okay, this time I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna take the time that it takes to do this, and it can be a little tedious or whatever. I'm gonna maybe put some music on that I like that will sort of ease the way. Maybe I've got one of my teachers calls it butt glue, right? It's the snack that keeps you rooted in your place, so you actually do your work, so you don't get up and try to like move around and do all the other stuff. You've got this glue here that's keeping you in the spot. You've got something delicious going in your mouth. You've got something delicious going in your ear. And then you sit there and you just do the thing. And you can take a certain amount of pleasure in getting that little thing done and doing each little piece of it and making sure there's a kind of pleasure. I was just talking with a client the other day about sweeping the floor, and how you can take a dirty floor and do the mundane task of sweeping, which is kind of annoying and it's kind of like labor intensive sometimes, and maybe you need to move some furniture around that you didn't feel like moving, and then it turns out that there's this other thing that you got to move, and there's all this sort of stuff that needs to be done, right? But then once you finish doing all of that, then you have a clean floor, and there's something that is really just beautiful about having done all of that work and then having a clean floor afterward, or having a completed task that maybe you've been dreading for a little while or something like that. Like, is there a way to make it fun or delicious, or to give yourself that backpatable moment so that you can feel the benefit of the slowness and the delays. I don't know. That's all my time.